Welcome to Demystify Magic with Molly and Madison.
I'm Molly, a former skeptic turned full-time energy healer and teacher.
And I'm Madison, a born and raised witch running my family's crystal shop.
And we're here to explore all things woo through the lens of both science and spirituality so that you can find the moments of magic in your everyday life and create an intentional spiritual practice.
So if that's what you're into, find a cozy spot, take a deep breath, and let's demystify some magic.
Howdy doody, friends.
Howdy doody.
It's a full-on howdy doody day, isn't it?
It really is, in more ways than one. If you are looking for a reason to join our Patreon, just know that as we sit and record in this moment, I am waiting for the police to arrive to my residence. And we're recording Akamam right after this.
I can't wait. Can't wait to hear the story.
But
today,
we're not here to talk about that.
We're going to talk about air.
And I need some. So it's a good thing we're talking about it today.
Yeah. Yep. We're talking about the element of air. This is part 2 of our element series, taking you back to elementary school.
I hate it here. Still.
If you missed the Earth episode, you should go listen to that and then come back here to air.
This is just our new way of saying start at the root.
Yeah.
Go back to Earth.
It really is. Go touch grass.
Go touch grass. Go get grounded before you come talk to me about the air.
Oh, you know what they say? A basketball player can only get air when they jump from the earth.
What?
Nobody says that.
I was going to say, sometimes I really do just go with you into that great night. Like, I just believe you. I'm like, sure, people say that. That's a thing. Totally. For certainly.
It reminds me of when we were walking around Disney World and I was just spouting facts and Anthony was like, how do you know all these facts? And I was like, about 30% of them are made up.
Just corroding trust one moment at a time.
Oh, anyways, before we dive into air, Madison, what was your magic moment?
Okay, my magic moment, I don't quite know if this constitutes a magic moment. It's mostly just something bonkers that happened that I'm like, it has to be psychicness. And so I'm telling it to you. So, as you know, if you listened to the Earth episode, Spellcrafter recently celebrated its first birthday, which was very exciting.
Pew, pew, pew.
And a part of that is we gave away this huge, gorgeous green aventurine tower.
Mm-hmm.
And any purchase that was made during that weekend was eligible. It counted as an entry, and so at the end of the weekend, I went through our processing system and looked at the order number, the first order that was eligible, and then the last order that was eligible. And so I looked at those two numbers and I just looked to Anthony on that Monday morning and I said, give me a number between this number and this number. And he just spouts off a number off the top of his head. And the only requirement was that you had to have an email address or a phone number attached to your order. We had to have a way to contact you. You basically had to get a receipt,
Yeah.
And so my only rule is that staff can't win.
Mm-hmm.
And Anthony just gives me a random number, whatever, off the top of his head. I look it up and I go, well, we have to choose another. He goes, why? We have to choose another. He had given inadvertently his own fucking number. In between hundreds of numbers. And we both didn't even realize that he had bought anything during the weekend. He had to buy a few chime candles for ritual that we had on Saturday night. And so he just grabbed them really quick. His card when our system knows that his card is attached to his email address. And so his name was on it. And I was like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. That is the wildest thing I've ever heard. You are so psychic. So sorry, love you, meet it, but you can't have this tower.
He's never going to shut up about that either.
I know.
That's the best part.
It was so funny. What was your magic moment?
Oh, what was my magic moment? Okay, I went on this big trip. I went to San Antonio for an event and then flew to Reno to see my best friend who moved out there. And then we drove to Santa Cruz. Okay. So I had to wake up for my flight from San Antonio to Reno at like 3:30 a.m. Central Time, and then go to Pacific Time. Okay, so just keep that in mind. I am like 2 hours behind what the actual time is.
Okay, I'm doing mental math.
And then we drove 5.5 hours to Santa Cruz. Okay, so I woke up at 3:30 a.m. I got like 4 hours of sleep, went on 2 airplanes, and then drove 5.5 hours. Got to Santa Cruz, got some food in me, and it was like the sun was just setting and we wanted to go on a walk on the beach. And I'm like delirious. I'm like, my brain is not working. I'm like dizzy from the plane, you know? And we decide to walk on the beach, and we walk over these rocks. And that was a bad idea because, again, I am dizzy from the plane. I am overtired, and it is now getting dark out. So I fall directly on my knee.
Oh, good. Good.
And it was like a slow fall. Like my hands didn't even brace myself. Like I was like, what's happening? And then because I fell on my knee, I start to cry.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, I'm so tired. I'm so sorry. I'm tired right now. It's like 9:00 at night in my brain. And I just have this like little meltdown.
Mm-hmm.
And then
you know
I
what?
look up.
There is magic in a little meltdown.
There is. But that wasn't the magic moment. The magic moment was I looked up, and sitting directly next to where my knee landed was a hagstone.
Beautiful.
I've never found a hagstone. So I picked that up and I went, this is going to be my magic moment.
It's like when you give a kid a lollipop after they scrape their knee.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And it was a honker hagstone too. So, and I didn't see another one the entire trip. So seemed like the universe was like, you know what? You get knocked down, you get a
back
little
up.
treat.
You get back up again. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Love that.
Love that. Anyway, let's talk about air.
Let's talk about air. I feel like a joke is like right on the tip of my tongue and I can't parse it out about air. I feel like I'm missing something in my own brain.
You feel a little bit like an airhead?
Oh, fuck you. Sorry, that was too much. Guys, it's been a day.
Oh. So air is a funny one. As we talked about in the last episode, we are approaching these elements through the lens of witchcraft, tarot, the chakras, traditional Chinese medicine, just all the different avenues that we are versed in. And it's funny because I said to Madison, I was like, I really want to talk about the traditional Chinese medicine approach of these elements. And she was like, great, I love that. And I was like, okay, never mind, because air is not an element in TCM.
Great. Love that.
Yeah. So the closest kind of like overlap would be the metal element, which corresponds with the breath, the lungs. I remember this. Here's my little mnemonic that I teased y'all on last week. But I remember air as metal because heavy metalists have strong lungs.
Excellent one. Well done.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you. And that's it. That's the episode.
Thanks so much, guys. We'll see you next week for fire.
But seriously, that really helps me remember that metal, air, strong lungs. Okay?
Also, I love that we're starting this episode about air, with metal.
Yeah.
We're like,
well,
yeah,
okay.
I hear you about air. I see that, and I raise you metal.
Metal.
How do we feel about that, guys? How do we feel about metal?
There's overlap, okay? So the metal element is tied to the lungs and the large intestine. And it really represents sort of, if we think about the organs in Chinese medicine, less about the actual physical tissues and more about their functions. The lungs have a couple different functions, right? It represents purification, right? Like purifying the air, carbon dioxide, doing that little transformation, right? It represents boundaries. The breath is really this boundary between like the outside coming in, the germs outside coming into our system. It represents letting go, right? The exhale. It represents communication and emotional expression, which is so deeply tied to how we are breathing. We've talked about before that stress response or that relaxation response impacts the way that we're breathing, the depth of our breath, the speed of our breath, etc. And so when we think about the air element or the metal element in this case, we can see it as this opportunity to create space, this opportunity to let go of the things that are kind of in our way, clouding things up, creating clutter in the mind, the energy, or the body, and let that go to create spaciousness and clarity. What's so interesting about looking at the metal element in TCM and then switching over to the heart chakra, which corresponds with the element of air, is that both of them have their intertwining with grief, right? The heart holds grief, the lungs, right? If we think about how it feels when we grieve something, it's often like a heaviness in the chest, and that shows up in the lungs as well. And so one of the things that we can kind of take away from this element is both sides of that grief. So in order to grieve something, we have to like have once loved it. And at some point we have to let it go, right? So that tie back to letting go of the things that are pulling us down, dragging us down so that we can create space is a very poignant through line in the air element.
I think it's so interesting that you bring up the concept of grief with air and with the heart. Like, I didn't know that those two things were connected. Like, I didn't know that the heart was connected to the element of air. Air is the element that I feel the least connected to. And like, it feels so silly to say, like, and I've had a really hard time with grief because I don't know that I've ever met anyone that's like, yeah, I feel really good about grief. Grief is really easy for me. But I've been very lucky to not experience a ton of heavy grief in my life. And so when it happened, it felt like it hit me like a train. And it was something that I obviously struggled with a lot. And so to hear that those things are connected, I just think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Because I
sure,
struggle with air.
Yeah. And it's interesting because a lot of times we think of air connected to clarity, right? When we have space, we have clarity. But I think grief often brings clarity too, right? You don't know what you got till it's gone, you know, that line.
That's one people really do say.
Yeah. Pave paradise, put up a parking lot.
I think we should just have a sing-along episode this week. But before we go any further, let's hear a word from our sponsors.
This episode is sponsored by Conscious Seed.
You know those times when the cosmos are clearly trying to tell you something, but you're like, could you maybe just email me instead?
Chelsea Joelle basically does that. She's an astrologer and the magical brain behind Conscious Seed. And her readings, they feel like your bestie texting you advice that comes directly from the stars.
Whether you're in a big life transition or just trying to understand why everything feels like molasses, Chelsea's astrology sessions bring so much clarity and they're full of self-love.
She also offers Celestial Circles, which is a virtual astrology meetup online to give you even more guidance so you're not out here doing shadow work on a solar eclipse by accident.
Been there. Don't recommend.
Her approach is grounded, gentle, and genuinely transformational. Think astrology as a ritual for self-tending, not just a personality quiz.
Use the code DEMYSTIFYMAGIC for 10% off her readings or upcoming cosmic offerings at the link in this episode's description. Your chart is waiting.
And the stars are like, finally, we've been screaming.
Thank you again to Conscious Seed for sponsoring this episode.
And we're back. So tell me about your experience with air. Tell me about witchcraft.
So in the realm of like paganism, witchcraft, whatever, there's a lot of overlap with how you've described metal. Air is really big for communication, intellect, that clarity. It's really tied to the breath, but I also see air as it's really tied to the truth, which is what I'm telling you. I struggle so much with air. I'm like, I'm actually a huge liar. I love to lie. No. It's just a suit that I don't always super connect with, or an element. I say suit because it's connected to the suit of swords, which is the suit that I struggle with. But swords for me when they come out really heavily in a reading, it is really tied to that idea of boundaries.
Yeah.
And one thing about me, that might be something I struggle with. And so, especially if you're someone who like dabbles in energy work, especially like with other people, you might find that the elements that are most like difficult for you to create balance with in your own life might be where it's difficult for you to help others find balance. Because sometimes I'll like pull, it's specifically the court cards with swords, where I really have to like take a second and recenter, have to take a breath. Get it?
Yeah.
A breath? Because it's all about breath. I can make jokes too on this podcast.
I didn't want to meddle in your joke.
I hate it here. But sometimes I have to sit for a second and go like, okay, what is this trying to say here? What are we trying to say here? And what I think is so funny is that my card of the year for 2025 is the Queen of Swords.
Oh.
And I've really been trying to dive deeper into the idea of air and into that swords energy to like see what it's there to teach me. Because sometimes I look at air and I'm like, yeah, the breeze, it's great. Love her. What else is there? Air is also really tied to the idea of cleansing in witchcraft, which that's where I can make the connection of like, okay, a breeze is cleansing. That's why one of my favorite ways, like, was this a thing that you did in high school? Were you like a windows down? I guess it doesn't have to be in high school for me. This is like a deep high school memory. You actually can only roll the windows down in your car in high school. Those are the rules.
I mean, back when I was in high school, we literally rolled the windows down. So,
but like for me, that's so indicative of like a specific place and time for me of like rolling all the windows down in the car, music all the way up, like the ultimate cleanse. Sound.
What was the song?
And air. Oh, there are some things that are meant to be private.
Oh, mine was Wham's Last Christmas, and it was not Christmas time. Yeah, I very distinctly remember it.
That's hysterical. No, for me, it was my friend Janelle and I, and it was always like unreleased Iggy Azalea SoundCloud music.
Yeah, that tracks.
I don't know what that says about me.
Not sure either.
Listen, I'll send you links, slide into our DMs. Not really. I think they're all deleted off the internet. That was like 10 years ago. But I think with cleansing, that's the easiest way to bring the element of air into your practice is a cleansing breath or even like using incense. Anything that can kind of like, I don't know a better word for it other than like manipulate the air. That's one of my favorite things about incense is like just watching the smoke and seeing how it interacts with the world around it. It feels like a manipulation of the air.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be interesting knowing that that is your card of the year, though, and now you've made that connection with grief.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
That's kind of bonkers.
Yeah, the way that, and what's so funny is they've like come out so hard for me in readings that I've done for myself and that I've done for other people. I just see like swords energy. That sounded so fake.
I'm sorry. Shall we talk about some rituals to connect with the air element?
Let's do it. I would love nothing more. I kind of touched on it a little bit with the incense, but any kind of like heavy smoke cleansing is a really easy ritual to interact with the element of air. And I really love to like pull out all the stops for a smoke cleanse just because it is so low effort. And so if you've got a cauldron, flaunt it. You know, fill that baby up, swing it around. I also heavily relate sound cleansing to air because in my mind, I'm like, it has to travel through the air.
Yeah.
You know?
That tracks for me.
That makes sense that those pieces go together in your brain. Love that.
Yeah. I think so.
So like, turn on your favorite Iggy Azalea unreleased track off SoundCloud.
Wham's Last Christmas.
It is such a good song.
It really is a bop.
There's another podcast that I listen to, A Date with Dateline, where every year they play this game at Christmas. It's called Whamageddon.
Yes.
And it's where you go as long as you try to go as long as you can without hearing it.
I would lose because I listen to it on the off season.
Yeah, you lose before it even starts.
Yeah, like I don't want to play that game because I would be sad if I went an entire season without listening to Wham.
I did try to play it this past year, and I was like, oh, this is kind of disappointing.
Yeah. You're missing something. It's like you're missing something.
You really are.
Let's play that, but with the little drummer boy.
Now that's a good one. Agreed. With Silent Night.
That song. Yeah.
You know?
Ugh. Or Baby It's Cold Outside.
Oh, no, I do love that one. I can't help it. Feminism 23/6.
Oh my God.
That is my toxic trait, that I do really like Baby It's Cold Outside.
This podcast is over.
You've never looked at me with such disappointment. I'm sorry. I didn't say it was right.
So back to air.
We're going to have to clear the air after this podcast.
Oh. Another tool to connect with air is with your breath. Shocking, I know. But I know a lot of times like breath work can feel overwhelming, but I think simple breath work practices are often the most powerful. Like one that I have been doing lately is you just breathe naturally and just bring your awareness to the space between each breath. So at the top of your inhale, there's a little pause. You just notice that. And then at the bottom of your exhale, there's a little pause. You notice that. You just go back and forth between the little pauses. And that one's great because it emphasizes that air element of the breath, but also that spaciousness that we talked about. And in the process of tuning into that part of your breath, you get clarity in your mind. So it's a triple whammy.
But a great way to connect to air, and this is also like a great way to connect to any of the elements, it's especially like earth as well, is doing any sort of energy work outside, doing any sort of spell work outside, feeling the breeze on you. That's a great way to call in air. But also things that represent air, like feathers. I love a feather. I love a feather on an altar.
Yeah. The sound of birds. Did you know the sound of birds, like, physiologically initiates a relaxation response in the body, even if they're not real birds?
Really?
Yeah. Listening to bird sounds can create that spaciousness in the mind.
Wow.
You let go of your stress.
That's really cool. No, I had no idea.
If you want to connect with the air element first thing in the morning, change your alarm sound to bird sounds.
I'm on it. There I go.
There you go.
Well, we really breezed through that one, huh? Oh, it feels good to get you.
I don't want to air our dirty laundry, but we did have a lot going on during this episode, so hopefully it makes coherent sense.
Yeah, the police are still on their way, so I think we did it.
I think we did it. Looking forward
to... They're here. Oh my God, perfect timing. They're here.
Timing. Okay, well, we'll see you next week for fire.
All right. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Demystify Magic with Molly and Madison. If you want to learn more about us, you can find all our links in the show notes.
We'd love to know what you think of today's episode, so drop us a review or give us a shout out on social media. And don't forget to let us know your magical moment of the week. Okay, love you. Bye.